I'm trying to lose 10 kilos of non-functional weight in the next 5 months, all while training to run the fastest marathon of my life. I came up with a weight loss plan that I thought was pretty smart, but I went to see a sports dietitian to find out what I was actually doing wrong and what I need to fix if I want any chance of running a 2:34 marathon. This is the nutrition plan she rebuilt from the ground up, so I can get leaner and get faster.
So for a bit of context, right now I weigh 79 kilos and I'm 15.8% body fat. Now that's higher than what I originally thought. I actually had a DEXA scan done during the week that came back at 15.8%, but I'm actually happy that I'm carrying more fat than I thought because it means there's more non-functional weight for me to lose. So the goal is to be at 69 kilos by April next year for the Bunbury Marathon, but I want to do it as safely and as sensibly as possible, if there is a way of doing this sensibly. I obviously don't want to get injured, but I also want to make sure that I'm adapting to and recovering from my training and that my calorie deficit isn't inhibiting that process.
Before we changed anything in my daily eating, Gaby explained something crucial about how we should be thinking about racing weight.
The reality is that the people who are at that elite level, and we see those body types, is because they are naturally in that fit or build. When we get someone and try to force them into that, it's like, no, I want to be like an elite runner, so it means I have to look like one. What we're doing is, instead of working on your strengths, we're pretty much making sure that you're fitting into a mold that is actually not designed for you. So the best thing we can do is looking at how can we make sure that with your body type, with the things that you're doing, we're working towards strengthening every single aspect of it.
And that led into something even more important: why chasing fat loss can actually backfire if it isn't supporting the training.
The purpose of nutrition is to make sure that two things happen. One is that your training is of really good quality. The second thing we want to achieve is that that training session is really efficient. So what we're looking at is that the building blocks, the nutrients, are present. So that way when the body comes and tries to adapt, we have those bricks that are going to enable that. So when we, let's say, focus on actually first I need to make my body smaller and then eventually I can train well, so then eventually I can race well, what we're focusing on is pretty much taking those bricks, taking that energy that is going to support the training, just so your body can actually reduce that fat, and then expecting that now your body is going to perform well.
And honestly, this explained exactly why the biggest breakthrough I've had recently made such a massive difference.
So what I was doing before is I was making sure I was getting my protein and carbohydrates, and then I was taking the deficit from the fats in my diet. So I ended up eating a very, very low fat diet. And what tended to happen is I might be really good with that diet for like a few days or a couple of weeks, but then I'd get this massive craving, these huge binge attacks. I wasn't sleeping well, my mood would drop, I'd be tired. As soon as I increased that fat content in my diet, so now I'm getting between 0.8 and 1 gram of fat per kilo per day. As soon as I started doing that, it was honestly a game changer. All those cravings went away. Like, I haven't had a single binge attack since. My mood's a lot better. I'm way less tired. I'm sleeping heaps better.
Then she explained why performance has to stay number one. It sounds obvious, but it's incredibly easy to lose sight of.
Through the training process, your body is going to naturally shift to a place. I call it the happy place. And the happy place is a spot, like a point where you're able to train consistently, you have the energy to do it, you are recovering well, and of course you are seeing how your body is improving. But the improvement is based on your pace, your heart rate, your threshold. How are we making sure that we are achieving those targets? And there's no DEXA scan, scale, or measurement of your body that can tell us that actually you can run that marathon better. So that's why the focus from a nutrition perspective is actually, let's make sure that you're eating to support that training, to support those results.
Now, one thing that's important to mention as we look at my diet, this is very individual for me. Now, something that's very relevant is I have Crohn's disease, which means I follow a low FODMAP diet, which kind of restricts a lot of foods for me, especially vegetables and fruits. If I didn't have Crohn's disease, I'd be eating a lot more vegetables and fruit. So please don't copy me, just look at the general ideas and work it out for yourself.
With that foundation in place, we rebuilt my daily fueling from the start of the day.
So I would rather you have, let's say, a couple of pieces of toast with eggs. And that what that's doing is that it's giving you, one, another source of nutrients, because the eggs are a really nice and complete protein. And what that does is that now you are fully satisfied with something that is quite nutritious as well.
So in addition to the usual porridge and blueberries and honey I have, we thought it might be good just to get a bit more calories in a bit earlier on in the day to help with recovery and stuff. Especially as I've got my weight session later on today, I want to try and top up those glycogen stores as quickly as possible so I can hit the weights hard this afternoon.
Breakfast was the first fix, but the next change was one I'd completely underestimated.
Having some protein before heading to bed, that is going to help with the recovery.
So I'm going to start having the casein protein, which is a slow release protein about an hour before bed. So the idea is when I sleep and my body's repairing itself, it's got the protein it needs to do that.
I was also keen to check with Gaby my strategy for nutrient timing. So in my mind, this was going to be a really major thing, to time the nutrients I was getting so that my body had what it needed when it needed it, particularly around workouts. So that's going to mean lots of carbs and protein before and after workouts, but also low fat content to maximize the absorption of those carbs. And it was good to know that Gaby thought I was pretty much on the right track with that.
It means that you are definitely timing your meals well and the balance of them is good. So that is amazing.
And if you struggle to eat after a workout, this might explain why.
Our body suppresses the appetite signals. And it doesn't mean that you're not hungry, it's pretty much your body puts them on mute. So it means that you finish the training session and the last thing you feel like doing is actually eating.
Yeah.
But in reality, it is really important that we do eat.
Once those habits were set, we looked at the next big question. How big should the deficit actually be?
So from the research that I'd done before I met with Gaby, I estimated that about a 500 calorie per day deficit is about where I want to be. It's not too aggressive, but it's still going to get the job done in time for Bunbury.
I don't think 500 is aggressive for sure. It's still something I would encourage, no. But yeah, 500 is as much as I would, let's say, put that gap there.
And the approach that I'm taking with my diet is to count calories and to weigh everything out, to be very meticulous with it, which for a normal person is insane and impractical and annoying. But for what I'm trying to do, I really do believe that is the best way. Because if I want to maintain that deficit and still hit my macros, you just have to be really careful. Like, there's just not enough headroom to be guessing. I want to make sure I'm getting 2 grams per kilo per day of protein and nothing more. Because if I get more than that, it's not needed, and those calories then could have been redirected towards more carbs or more fat. So I think it's really important to track when you're trying to do what I'm doing.
But this is where things can go wrong fast.
In my chat with Gaby, I was really keen to come away with some warning signs that would let me know if I was taking things too far or if my body was just not happy sustaining this deficit. So she came up with some red flags for me to be on the lookout for.
One is your recovery after training. The other one is your overall ability to concentrate throughout the day. But we want to see that there's not a decline as we're heading towards the second half of the day. The next one is how frequently are you thinking of food? And of course, your hunger. So those are early signs. The last thing we want to see is some injury. For example, if you are anxious, stressed, depressed, psychological symptoms, those are things that are really, really red flags, and we don't want to see those things either.
And once we had those guardrails in place, we looked at my actual day-to-day diet.
So one of the things that Gaby was saying is it'd be good to get a little bit more variety in my diet. Because I guess when you're counting calories like I am, it makes it much easier, just practically speaking, to just work out a few meals and then just eat the same thing all the time, so you don't have to keep working it out. But of course, one of the disadvantages of that is just a lack of variety.
Pretty much every single day looks really, really similar to the other. Something that is missing out a lot is the nutrient component. If we think about how different foods are giving us different things. The fact that you every single day for pretty much all year we're eating really, really similar meals, like there's very little variation here. It does make it very challenging for us to take advantage of those other micronutrients. There's also things called phytonutrients that is not as easy to track, let's say. So the more color is in your plate, the more variety we have. It doesn't mean that every single day you have to be eating drastically different, but it does mean that we want to have several meals in a week that definitely are introducing that nice variety.
So the plan is to kind of swap out some of the veggies every few days. Just, take a walk on the wild side. Instead of having capsicum, maybe have a carrot or something. Crazy.
And to stop myself digging into a hole, we added one final safeguard.
I'd already planned to have monthly refeeds where I eat either at maintenance or in a slight surplus for 3 or 4 days, but Gaby reframed it in a way which probably makes more sense. She said if performance drops, the deficit stops.
If we're seeing that actually your body is no longer responding, if we see some plateau in performance, that is a really good sign in terms of, okay, should we reconsider this? Should we look at other ways to do this instead?
So here's the full 5-month plan I'm following to hit 69 kilos and still get faster.
Have bigger breakfasts on workout days, have more protein before bed, more variety in my diet, to stick to that absolute maximum of 500 calorie deficit per day, to continue with the planned monthly refeeds, but to do it more often if my performance is suffering. And performance will always trump weight. So if I'm losing weight, but my performance isn't getting any better, there's just no point. And of course, I need to be on the lookout for all those red flags Gaby discussed. I'm gonna be looking out for my mood, for cravings, hunger levels, my sleep.
So here's the full structure of my diet across easy days, workout days, and long runs. But just to repeat, please don't copy this. This is very specific for me and my needs, and your needs are going to be different. But I am going to tweak this to incorporate some of Gaby's suggestions. So I'm going to be adding more variety. I'll be changing up the vegetables, different protein sources. I've added eggs and toast for bigger breakfasts on harder days. But the exact numbers don't matter as much as the structure and the principles. I've got a steady stream of carbs, I'm having enough protein each day, and crucially, I'm fueling the sessions so that I can get the job done and recover well.
So I went away from our session feeling pretty good. I think this plan is achievable, and if I can stick to it, I should be able to make some really good progress across these 5 months in a very safe and sustainable way.
So if anyone is interested, I do have a nutrition audit that's absolutely free for anyone who wants to see how their fueling fits into a framework that is designed for better performance and health.
So that's the plan, and all that remains is for me to implement it. So if you'd like to follow my progress and just see what happens over the next 5 months, make sure you're subscribed. I'm going to be doing updates on all the nutrition, following the training, the strength stuff, lots of testing to come. It's going to be a really interesting, fun, and exciting 5 months, and we'll see where I end up come April. I'll see you in the next one.